Hey, Algebra 1, wanted to come up to school and use my smart board for today's Delta math work. Hopefully you'll take out a sheet of paper, and as we explore solving equations or inequalities, this is something that you will actively explore on your own sheet of paper, and hopefully you'll save that at the very end so that I can look at all your work. So let's go to some one-step equations. And I wanted to have my board so that I can just kind of model this. We talked about solving as a process of figuring out what value the variable represents to make the equation true. For example, some number divided by -8 is 1. And so we have to know all of our opposite pairs. The opposite of adding is subtracting. Another word for opposite would be inverse. The inverse of multiplication is division. And so we're going to be using these ideas to kind of move numbers around to understand what their value is. For example, this is dividing by -8. I want to multiply -8 to the other side, and that gives me s equals -8, and that would be the answer that I need to type in here. So let's do a few of these one-step problems to kind of get a feel for what we did back in Algebra 1 when we were still in school. And then we'll do some harder ones. Similar problem here. Let's multiply 7 away from t. 7 times -9, that is -63. And so -63 divided by 7 is how you're going to calculate 9 in that problem. So let's try one that has to do with some complicated looking fractions. So if I want to do this in 2 steps, I could start by multiplying 5 to the other side. And then I could take the 4 and divide it away. But really, you can think of this as multiplying by the reciprocal. That means the fraction that represents the numerator and denominator flipped. So instead of 4 over 5, it's 5 over 4. And so 10 times 5 would be 50, and 50 divided by 4. Don't think that goes into it perfectly, but it does simplify to 25 halves. So let's see what it likes for that one. 25 over 2. And we're good to go. So let's back up and look at some 2-step equations. 2-step just means it's a slightly longer problem. So this says 15 equals 3x minus 15. So I want to isolate the variable by adding 15 to the other side. 15 plus 15, that makes 30. And then let's take that 3x and divide by 3, and I think that's going to give us 10. 30 divided by 3, x has to be 10 there. Very good. Let's try another 2-step problem. Starting by moving that constant away from the variable, subtract 12 from 30. That's 18. 18 equals -6w. And then let's divide that -6 away, and I think that would give us -3. Okay, so there is a few examples of some 2-steppers. Let's try some that are a little longer than that. 3-step linear equations. So for something like this, I want to kind of put the common terms together, put the like terms together. So I want to subtract 6x from one side. So that'd be 11 minus 6, that'd be 5x plus 9 equals -1, if my eyes serve me correctly, yeah. And then let's put the 9 and the 1 together, subtract 9 from both sides, and 5x equals -10. So let's divide by 5. And it looks like for this one, x equals -2. So we called this variables on both sides. And so it kind of takes 3 steps. You got to put the variables together on one side, put the constants together on the other side, and then finish the problem out a lot of times with division. So let's check out another one like that. So -14x, -10x, these are like terms. So I want to add 10x from one side to the other. -4x minus 5 equals -45. That's the remaining constants there. Then let's put the 5 and the -45 together. And so I want to do the opposite of subtraction, which is addition. And that gives me -40. And then let's divide -4 to the other side, and that would give us positive 10. Okay, so let's back up and check out some with distribution. So these usually have a parenthesis in them, and they want you to start by distributing using multiplication here. So -2 times 4x be -8x. -2 times 4, -8, but this time without the x. And then I still have -3x minus 2 equals 34. So now I want to kind of combine some things that are on the same side. For example, -8x, -3x. I don't want to use an opposite here because they're on the same side of the equal sign, but I do want to say that -8 plus, or -8 and minus 3 would be -11x, and similarly, -8 minus 2 would be -10. So then let's continue the problem. Let's add 10 to the other side. -11x equals 44 now. And then let's divide by -11. It looks like that one gives you -4. Okay. Let's do one more of that type. This one's a little shorter. It looks like you don't have as many values outside of the distribution process as the other one. So 3 times 3y, that'd be 9y. And 3 times -8, that'd be -24. And then that equals 30. So now that I've distributed, I want to add 24 from the left to the right. 9y equals 54. And then divide 9 to the other side, and 54 divided by 9 is 6. Okay, so let's back up and let's look at some inequality problems to kind of wrap this video up a little bit. Got about, we got plenty of time. So it says, which of the following values are solutions to the inequality? Would it be -1, would it be 9, or would it be +1? So let's solve this inequality. And one thing I want to remind you is, and I don't see it on this problem in particular, but anytime we are dividing by a, I want to make this real clear, we'll make that negative. Let's say that you were dividing a negative number across that inequality. That would mean that the sign in the middle would have to change directions. So that's something you really want to watch out for whenever you're solving inequalities. So for this one, it looks like we'll start by adding 10 from the left to the right. And it's not an equals, it is a less than or greater than sign. -5 plus 10 is 5, and when you divide by 5, it looks like that would be 1. So any value that is 1 or less than 1 should be considered a solution. So values that would be included would be the third one, because it's actually equal to 1, but also the first one, -1, because that value would be less than 1 also. So we're looking for 1 and 3. 1 and 3. Excellent. Let's try another one of those. This one may have to involve that process that we were talking about a minute ago. Let's add 1 to both sides, -2x less than or equal to -9. And then when we divide by -2, this is where that rule is going to come into play. Instead of less than, it's going to be greater than or equal to +9/2. Now, +9/2, that's 4.5. So really we want a value that's greater than 4.5. So I'm thinking 6 or 7. So that means we want solutions 2 and 3. Solutions 2 and 3 right there. So watch out for that sign flip. That's something that gets a lot of students mixed up. So let's try one more there. Solving this inequality, I want to subtract 10 from one side to the other. -15 less than 2x. And then we'll divide 2 to the other side. And so this number is really -7.5. And so we've got to be careful reading this. This is saying -7.5 is less than all the answers. So that means that x would be greater than negative 7.5. So we really want something that's bigger than negative 7.5. And really that's all of these. Negative 2, negative 1, negative 4, they're all going to be greater than negative 7.5. All right, so we've got one more section here, linear inequalities. So let's just continue talking about solving those just like I was demonstrating a moment ago, but watch out for your sign, okay? So let's start by combining like terms, and I really like putting the variables on the left, especially for this, because it says z is on the left when we're submitting our answer. So that's 11z, that has minus 7 with it, less than or equal to 9. So now we're going to do two more steps. Let's add 7 over here to be with 9. 11z is less than or equal to 16. And then we'll divide by 11. And this answer is a weird one because it's not a real pretty answer. But we do want less than or equal to. And then I'll just do 16/11 to type in my answer there. Let's see if we got it correct. Yeah. So let's do one more of those. And so again, it's a lot like solving an equation. You're just trying to get that variable by itself. Subtract 6f from one side to the other. When there's no sign in front of 6, it's positive. So let's make sure we subtract there. 10 minus 6, that'd be 4f. And then we still have the plus 2 greater than or equal to 7. Let's subtract the 2 from one side to the other to get 5. 7 minus 2 is 5. And then divide by 4. So for this one, we want greater than or equal to, and we want 5 over 4, 5/4. Cool. All right, since I do have a few more minutes in the video, I'll do one more just to make sure that everybody feels supported. And if you need to email me, please email me and I'll be happy to contact you about whatever issue you're having. Just be specific about what's going on. 8 minus 3, 5s. My 5's and s's always look so similar, so I'll be real careful there. Plus 6 less than 1. Let's subtract 6 from one side to the other. 5s less than negative 5. And in this problem, you're not dividing by a negative. The number that's moving is positive 5, so I won't flip the sign here. It needs to be less than negative 1. All right, so that wraps up part 3, solving linear equations and inequalities. Let me know if you have any questions. Got one more, maybe 1 or 2 videos depending on what we need, but we got one more section here, linear systems. Thank you so much for doing this, and I will talk to you next time.